Why is it that the Arsenal competitive community likes playing Matrix 1v1s so much more than Sandtown 1v1s? I scrolled through the match results page in 3 of the most popular comp servers, and here's what I found. On Ash, 7% of the 1v1s over a week were on Sandtown. In AC, 6% of the 1v1s over a week were on Sandtown. And in CAS, 31% of the 1v1s played over 2 weeks were on Sandtown. However, this percentage is an outlier because it was one guy hosting all of the Sandtown matches. From my observations, it seemed like generally the Sandtown matches were hosted by the same few people, while the Matrix ones were hosted by a much wider group. Overall, I'm fairly certain that over the past 3 to 4 years, a great majority of the 1v1s were on Matrix in comparison to Sandtown, which has been neglected. If I had to make an educated guess, I would say that approximately 96% of the 1v1s have occurred on Matrix in this time period. These statistics confuse me though, because I believe that Sandtown is a much more well-designed map than Matrix is. This is my personal opinion, but I believe I have some good evidence to back up my claims. So let's begin. I'll be focusing on the following areas of map design: movement mechanics, the map layout, which is mainly the structures or buildings, the spawns, which is escaping spawn traps or camps, and map size. Firstly, movement is the most obvious difference between Matrix and Sandtown. Over the summer, I worked on a movement tutorial series with Desp, and we made a video that covered Sandtown movement. As the video shows, Sandtown is the most movement-heavy map in the game, and has a number of places where you can do wall hops, flick jumps, slide jumps, super jumps, corner jumps, and bounce jumps. This is in comparison to Matrix, which barely has anything. With so many movement options available, the map allows for higher level gameplay because of the potential for so many different playstyles. It's possible to predict people's playstyles and then counter them, something that even diehard Matrix players know well. On Sandtown, countering playstyles becomes a much more complex game, due to the number of possible ways that you can change positions on the map by use of movement. Being able to foresee your opponent's actions by learning their playstyle, and then in turn how you choose to counter them, goes much deeper on Sandtown because of movement. The complexity is further heightened by the use of sound detection and seeing shadows. Again, something that isn't as prevalent on Matrix. All this is to say is that the level of gameplay on Sandtown, in terms of how many brain cells each player is activating, is a lot higher than on Matrix. It's like playing chess instead of checkers. In my opinion, this is one of the most important factors that makes Sandtown 1v1s enjoyable to replay. You can expect more varying gameplay than Matrix every time. The point is not that more complexity makes a map better, but rather, in this case, it makes the gameplay a lot more interesting and fun. For some examples of how far Sandtown gameplay can go, I'd recommend watching a 1v1 that Desp did with the user known as Trusted Bubble, someone I hope to talk about in a future video. Unfortunately, Desp's audio didn't record, but you can still see the advanced playstyle prediction and countering going on by both sides, though Trusted, who is Glastic, was likely using ESP. It's also worthwhile looking at Enrique's old 1v1 content on the map. While a lot of the matches he played were in 2022 when you could do flick jump A, his commentary on playstyle prediction is still relevant for today. To summarize, Sandtown's vast amount of movement options makes for more complex 1v1s than Matrix, and, in my opinion, it makes the map much more enjoyable to replay due to the wide variety of playstyles you can go up against and the different ways you can counter them. Now, let's talk about the layout of Matrix and Sandtown. Layout is primarily determined by the structures or buildings on the map, and as I'll get into, the map size. Matrix's layout doesn't give you many options in terms of where you can reposition yourself. This is because of how many open angles there are and how generally there isn't a way to be unpredictable, except for messing up the timings, which is still something present on Sandtown, along with its superior structures. Matrix encourages wall-hugging based gameplay that leads to matchups that are solely based on aim and peeking, meaning that movement and advanced playstyle countering don't really matter. This is a part of what I like to call the two-angle rule. On Matrix, at any given static position, there are only 2 angles from which you can peek from, both of which can be seen by your opponent, meaning that both players will know where each other are 99% of the time. This is always the case when it comes to spawn traps. When we get to the spawn section, I will more clearly define what I mean by a spawn trap. Comparing this always predictable style of gameplay to Sandtown, which has numerous options for rotating around the map and being in unexpected locations, is an important point for why Sand's layout is superior. Maps should allow players to go to unexpected positions or have ways to reposition without being seen. Matrix fails in this aspect, while Sandtown has many buildings that you can use for cover and changing positions. Furthermore, Sandtown has many buildings or structures that have different levels of height that you can peek from. Again, the key difference is that you can reposition to these without being seen most of the time. The different height levels add a new dimension to gameplay, creating further potential for complexity of playstyle, as players can not only choose where on the map they peek, but also from how high up. Some examples include picnic roof and perch. The plane wing and dome area. And fort. Note that Matrix is essentially a map where you'll be fighting people from the ground level the entire time. There is a second height level to it, but because of Sandtown's other layout features I mentioned, I consider Sandtown to win in this aspect. So, in summary, Sandtown features many buildings or structures that allow you to reposition around the map without being seen and peek from unexpected positions, something that's enriched by the map's different height levels. Now let's talk about spawns. I need to define what I mean by a spawn trap. The term is often mixed up with a spawn camp, but I'm just going to be saying spawn trap here. I define it as going to a certain position on the map in order to make your opponent spawn in an area you know they will. So starting on Matrix, all of the spawn traps are extremely difficult to escape from unless you out-aim or out-peek your opponent. This is especially a problem nowadays, where you can expect to play against people who will break guidelines and do the same spawn trap over and over again. If you didn't know, you're supposed to rotate through what traps you use to make it more fair for your opponent. Now, Sandtown on the other hand has ways to escape every spawn trap and be hidden. While being hidden, it's possible to get to unexpected locations that you can use to outplay your opponent as you learn their playstyle. For the palm tree spawn trap here, which is pretty notorious, it is possible to escape it. See, I just got that other location. What you can go ahead and do is climb up a picnic roof, and then if they do decide to push, you can stay on perch. But usually what I find is people will like peek the angles over there under fort. So what I like to do is just do a super jump up here, right? Because then you have like a massive height advantage on them. But that's just showing that you can escape that spawn trap. Another spawn trap here that's like pretty notorious is the one where you do a slide jump to get up here, because obviously you have another height advantage on your opponent. But like in comparison to Matrix, they can peek from multiple different angles. You have down on the right, down on the left, up top. You could go over to that rafter. You could climb up the trees even. You could also peek from down here. So the point being is that you have way more options to be unpredictable versus Matrix, where you're just like basically stuck in a corner and there's only 2 possible angles you can peek from on every single spawn trap. Okay, and then this spawn trap as well is like they go on top of fort. And this one's still escapable because you can run down here, and then obviously you have a number of different options. If they were still up top, you could peek them from down below. That's an option. You could come down here and then not miss your jump, and you could do a corner jump up here and wait for them to like walk under you. And that's a really good way to counter it. Most people would never expect that. Obviously you can peek from here. You could come over here and do this corner jump, and if they peek over there, you could shoot them. Then when you're up here, of course, you can get onto this and then come around, which is, you know, another really unexpected thing. If you're on top of fort, right, and you're holding these angles, you can't actually see enough over there, and if somebody peeks from right there, like that's again another really unexpected position. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could also try to do the flick jump to get all the way on top of there. The only problem with that is that, okay, well, tested it first try, but that's pretty inconsistent most of the time. But yeah, again, you know, even the worst spawn traps on Sandtown have there's so many more options, you know, there's so many more options for you to escape from them versus Matrix, where you're just basically stuck in a corner. Lastly, the map size. One of my biggest problems with Matrix is that it feels like an extremely tiny map. This comes from the fact that almost all of the spawn traps are based on rushing, meaning that both players are going to be using approximately 1/3 of the map. Considering how small Matrix already is, you can see why this makes for unenjoyable gameplay. The super close distances make it so there isn't any chance of repositioning or being unpredictable. I'll repeat this fact ad nauseum. Now, proponents of Matrix might argue that there are spawn traps that are based on longer distances, which is true, but it doesn't negate the fact that the map becomes extremely cramped during a majority of spawn traps, and that its layout still prevents you from repositioning effectively when being spawn trapped, even on the longer distance ones. Sandtown has a very balanced size, and there aren't any spawn trap rushes that don't give you any options to escape. Like I pointed out in the live commentary, even the palm tree spawn trap is escapable by repositioning, because you can climb up Picnic Roof. Sandtown does have some longer distance spawn traps that are quite in favor of the spawn trapper. However, there's still more than a maximum of 2 angles to peek from when someone is making you spawn at those locations. This is another category I have to say that Sandtown takes the win in. That's going to wrap it up for today's video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm confident that I've demonstrated that Sandtown has a superior layout, balanced spawns and size, and that its movement mechanics make for more fair and enjoyable gameplay in comparison to Matrix. If you disagree or agree with me, make sure to leave a comment down below and share your thoughts. See you guys soon. Peace.